Welcome, dear friends of Autogefühl, today to a very special episode with one of the most anticipated cars of the year, the all-new Volvo XC90. We already presented you the car in a static way at the world premiere, for example. Now today we can finally also drive it. We'll take a detailed look at the exterior, the interior, and of course also at the driving. And we will have different engines to test as well. This one here, to start with this one, is the new top version, the T8. This is the plug-in hybrid. So we got the biggest petrol engine here, 320 horsepower plus 80 horsepower from an electric engine. And we also have the diesel, the top diesel, 225 horsepower, and just the top petrol engine, 320 horsepower in our review here today. So we're starting here with the design. This one is the top version, top trim level, Inscription. It usually starts at Kinetic, then there's a trim level of Momentum, the middle trim level, and then there's the top trim level with Inscription or the R-Design, the sporty design level. This one is Inscription, the best you can get and the most elegant you can get. And just from the base design, which every new XC90 will have, is this new huge front grille with vertical lines and this rather classic Volvo logo, which is kind of reminding us of old Volvo logos. So it's a bit of a mix between the old and the new style. Which is quite prominent here is the lower bumper lip here, kind of a little bit angular here on that side. So that one also creates a very strong atmosphere. And what I personally like are those chrome elements in the lower right for the air intakes. And then, of course, the most unique features is here, so-called Thor's Hammer headlight. Some of you already said, well, the new Audi A7 facelift also has something like that, just from the daytime running light. And we see when it's on later that we have really this T-form, so the daytime running light does not continue the line of the headlight here in the front. From the side profile we see, well, they have really decided we go to that classical, rather angular SUV shape, the full SUV shape. You know, there are also other types of cars now. There's the BMW X6, for example, or the new Mercedes GLE Coupe, which more go to this round coupe style. They really want to have a lot of space on the inside, and this new version is now 4.95 meters long. That's 15 centimeters longer than the predecessor, and also this new generation got broader and in general more spacious, almost 3 meters of wheelbase. About the rear, this one is 20-inch alloy, so the top alloy is really huge, and you still got a lot of tire, so it's still fitting for your off-road rides. With the Inscription trim level here, you see we have this beautiful lower chrome line here below the doors, especially for that version. What is also quite unique are the new door handles here, where we see a chrome element around it, a chrome frame, but then we got the color of the car again on the top side. This one, by the way, is the keyless entry, so you see I close the car now. If I just wave my hand here again, I can also open it again, or if I just pull the door here with my hand. So, and continuing to the rear line. We see we still got a lot of window space here, so that's really saying I'm the rather classic full-size SUV. I want to offer a lot of space and don't want to offer this coupe line, and that will also bring a lot of space for the passengers on the inside, on the rear. And we also got optional 7 seats here as well, so that is kind of a unique feature here as well. Then we got a rather huge rear wing, which gets some dynamic, and then what we already know from the predecessor or also from the current XC60 are those shaped rear lights. And well, they had also something which is kind of unique for the Volvo design. Hardly anyone else has this, so this is kind of a signature Volvo rear light meanwhile. So, and looking just from the rear back here, we got some new chrome elements here also with the Inscription version, so everything is really elegant here now. But we will also see later in our review, when we go to another trim level, it's not all about the Inscription trim level from the outside, just also the basic new XC90 looks really amazing. So let's get into the interior. I'll first take a seat on the co-driver seat so I can explain you the driver position very well. We got a new panoramic roof which lets a lot of light here in the interior. You see I still get some sunshine from the roof now, from the panoramic roof. This one is actually the biggest panoramic roof that has ever been built in a Volvo. And then we see this is really so totally new, that interior. There's just one feature here on the interior which was carried over from the predecessor version. I'll show you later. Everything else is really new. Here in this Inscription version we got everything in it. This car as it stands here right now, it should be like 90,000 euros, approximately 80 to 90, because you really got everything in it, and you also got the plug-in hybrid. A usual Volvo XC90, for example, in Germany now with a 225 horsepower diesel is about 53,000 euros, and there will also be an entry version later, a little bit less horsepower for the diesel and also for the petrol engine, and then it will also go below 50,000 euros. Here in this Inscription version you got the leather dashboard, and we also have the optional Bowers & Wilkins sound system, 19 speakers, and they say it's really top of all sound systems, and we'll listen to it later on and can tell you something more about it. About the seats, they are also, as we used from Volvo, very luxurious. I really can confirm that Volvo has the best seats on the market right now. Also, if you just pick an old S60 or an XC60 or whatever, but here we got the they say improved seats. We'll talk more about that later when we're driving. These were also the Inscription seats we see here with the Inscription logo, and they really make a very good impression and also look already very comfortable. Well, a new steering wheel, I think it's rather disappointing, because these plastic buttons here, you know, it's shiny on the upside and with a black background. This one actually looks a bit cheap. I'm not too pleased by this, but in general the steering wheel is quite okay. And I'm also not a fan of this hard plastic cover here for the airbag, but it's also always a case of regulations. You don't know what you can actually build there. Here, maybe you've seen that on the vents we see a sign with clean zone, and that is especially important for the new Chinese customers. Volvo will be will have the most important market for China now. Clean zone means that there's an extensive filter system, so the air gets really clean, and if you're in a polluted city, for example in Beijing or whatever, that might be very important for you. In this T8 plug-in hybrid top version, we also got a glass shifting lever for the automatic gearbox. This one was very unique, but it cannot consist only of glass. You need this aluminum cover due to safety regulations, because this glass structure had to be also kind of crash tested, that you know, it doesn't get ripped apart in a crash and injures the passengers. Quite of an interesting detail here. And then you see there's this very clean dashboard. We don't have so many buttons here, only 8 buttons in the lower part here, and then we have this central screen here. And I can also show you something of the screen then, because this one is really the most unique thing here for the new Volvo, totally new system. So let's see, there it is. So we have basically 4 columns here: navigation, media for music, phone, and here, for example, we got another option for the sound experience, but you can also put something else there. Maybe the most important functions first. You can always access the climate functions below here. Okay, secret resolved. We had to start the engine actually to control the temperature here, so that's also an important information. Then again, we can also slide or just press, or we can use plus and minus here on the touch pad. We have had a discussion so far if that's really a useful option, that you cannot actually control the climate via extra buttons. You save some more space here with the buttons, but you know, I'm rather a fan of controlling the temperature with a knob or something like that. I'm not sure if I really like that. It is a clean and very shiny solution, of course, but I would rather prefer it as a button. I think Audi has a good solution there from the mix between using buttons and doing the rest with the central screen. Here it's maybe a little bit too much in the central screen, but in general it looks quite fancy, of course. Not as huge as, for example, in the Tesla, but just from the resolution and how you can control everything. Looking at the GPS here now, for example, it's also very easy, very intuitive to control. For example, you can zoom in, zoom out, or just go inside the map here. Then if you slide to the right, you can also pick the radio, or you connect your Bluetooth, phone, and so on. So everything quite easy and intuitive. We got a weather app here, how we can see. Need an internet connection for that, of course. So, well, it's a lot to play around with, but we know at the end of the day it also counts for about how does the car really drive. You see here now 15 degrees, very nice. Okay, what is quite neat here is this checkered structure here around the buttons. Actually, these buttons are just there because in this kind of number, because they have to be there from governmental regulations. For example, the warning sign, or the heating for the windows, for example. So very interesting interior design here. Also for the cup holders, for example, everything feels high class. And Volvo says from their already 16,000 sold cars worldwide, 2,000 in Germany, they say they have already a lot, like 40% of customers from Audi, BMW and Mercedes, and I can really understand why, because this whole interior looks so much more special than, for example, with Audi, BMW and Mercedes. Of course, every brand has its, unique features and what maybe fans especially like, but this one really has something special we haven't seen before, and if you like something special, you really find something nice here. We also talked about it in other Volvos. We have a frameless rear mirror. That's also a nice feature here, by the way. This signals me where I'm driving to, northeast, so it's kind of a small compass in here for now. So at the first sight, I'm quite amazed by this interior, especially by the seats and also by the structures here. Everything feels high class. We know with some little flaws here, for example, with the buttons at the steering wheel or the airbag cover. That's, we've seen it better, for example, in a Mercedes or in an Audi, but there can't be any feature that is really better than the other one. Really like the Bowers & Wilkins style, though, of the central speakers and also the speakers inside of the doors, and also the door handles, also very well designed. So, Now let's switch seats with our cameraman that I get in the rear department. So let's see, as we don't have the coupe form now, we should also have more space. By the way, also the door handles feels very heavy, so it's kind of interesting because you see this detail here. It's not only flipping here, it's also flipping a little bit on the inside. That feels kind of unique, very, very nice actually. So let's see. Actually, I haven't put the seat as I would be driving. It's rather way back, so I would put it more in the front. But still, then I got a lot of legroom. So actually, legroom is not really something you could think about if I put the seat more to the front as I would be driving. Really, it's maybe rather like that. So you will. No matter how tall you are, you will always have space here in the rear department. Also pretty nice with the side vent here. We know that from Volvo. Headroom. Although we got this huge panoramic roof, I still have this kind of headroom with my 1.86 m. So that's also great. And that wall will also be a unique feature in comparison to these SUV coupe models, because you will always have more headroom here. And then there's also the back seats. We'll take a look at them quite soon for the 7-seat options. It's not too hard to put them up, but we'll first take a look at the trunk then. Here in general, I can also adjust the seat to the front and the back. That's good because I can access the rear and I can also lengthen the trunk, for example. And that's actually possible for every single 3 seats. For example, I can also put the middle seat a little bit in the front and back again. So very practical. And I got the climate control in the central. If you come over here, it's also very nicely done. Well, it catches a little bit of dust here on this screen, but at least we have this control function here. The back side of the seats, that's kind of a little, well, rather cheaper structure, but you only conceive this as cheap because everything else feels really so high class. We don't really see from the outside that this one is the hybrid engine. We only see here it says twin engine and T8 with the inscription. So this twin engine really signals us this is a car. About the trunk opening, well, there are several ways. I could push the key and then it opens automatically. I could also open it here. So we open it with the key then here. And then, well, this is kind of, I wonder why this doesn't go any more up, but because I'm touching with my head. So then I can just flip it to the back, and then you can see we have a huge trunk really. Goes far away in there, and also the back seats are totally hidden and you have an even flat ground. I'm not sure about this cover. This looks like it would get, you know, a little bit. I'm not sure about that one. Not too convinced. But I can show you then, by the way, this is a key. Very beautiful key. With artificial leather on the outside. I think it's artificial leather. Very nicely done. And then you will now see this experiment, how I remove the cover. I just put it to the ground that we're not disturbed by that. And now it gets exciting because we now first go around here to the rear seats. Then we have to flip the switch at the lower part here that we can pull it to the front. To make it even easier, it's also possible to move the seat a little bit to the front, and then we can pull up this lever and move up the rear seat. You see, it's a kind of a full seat. It looks really high class. And by the way, before I forget, you can also easily flip the headrest up. And the same actually works for the other seat here. So pretty easy. Very well done. And then you also have, well, they say 1.70 meters for the 7th seat. But I can try to climb in now. It's not too easy, but you know, it's easier than, for example, in the Nissan X-Trail. And well, I would not sit here for a long time. It depends on how far you get the rear bench to the front, but I think just from a headroom size, it's even okay. I got the belt here, it's no problem. It's rather about the knees, I must say. So you would have to move the bench to the front, but actually that's a good solution, because sometimes you want to even maybe transport more people, and then you have the solution and you don't lose much trunk here in the back. So a very nice solution here, and that's also a unique feature for the Volvo in this class here. So before driving, this is how you fuel it up, the petrol engine. All 4 cylinders, by the way, now from Volvo. And then if we go around the car, next to the driver door, we got the plug-in. So this is where you put the cable. 2 hours charging time, and the electric range just from the electric is supposed to be 50 kilometers. You know, in everyday life it will maybe be rather like 30 kilometers, I think, even when it's colder, for example. But 50 kilometers is the official figure for that. Then you've seen, maybe I've already opened. So let's take a look beneath the hood. So this one is the hybrid engine now, the usual petrol one plus the electric engine, and the all-wheel drive here works in that way that the petrol engine is just powering the front wheels and the electric drive the rear wheels. Usually with a 320 horsepower petrol engine you get the normal all-wheel drive front plus rear, usually 95% front, 5% rear, and then even more power can be transferred to the rear wheels, of course. But here in this hybrid version it's kind of split. You don't have the classic all-wheel drive, just the electric drive is for the rear wheels. And just a short excursion how it looks beneath that. This is actually the basic layout of the T8 engine. So we see in the central part, this is actually the battery placed in the middle and at the bottom of the car, so the weight is also in the center. And then we can see beneath the hood, we saw actually that one. This is a power splitter, so the power from the battery can also be used, for example, here for the climate control. So this one is used for that as well. Then if we continue on to the back, there we see how the power from the central battery is actually delivered to the rear engine. Rear electric engine, of course. Pretty impressive. So, gentlemen, start your engines, and we do it right below here. It's not a button where you push it. By the way, this crystal frame here is very nice in my opinion. We actually turn to the side, and then we don't hear any engine popping up because we have the hybrid drive here. We have a full digital instrument here in the central view, tempometer and RPM meter on each side, and the central screen can be adjusted. For example, you can also put the GPS in there, for example, or personal info. Then we have the automatic shifter, neutral, put it back to D. Then we have the hybrid. I can just release the brake. Then we're starting and we don't make any sound, just the wheels are making the sound. And that's of course very impressive, because you also wouldn't expect that from such a huge car, that you don't hear any sound. So we can see it, for example, here now in the central screen. We got every information we want to have. And now let's listen to it. Okay, that's the home button. Let's check out the GPS, how it shows GPS. Oh, it's nice and sunny here now. So let's scroll in with GPS, and you immediately realize you should really get used to this system first, because when you're driving it shouldn't distract you actually. But then you can see the GPS now is also in my central screen, so that's a good solution that you don't get distracted by the huge screen in the middle. So very silent driving. Of course, the usual petrol engine set in now, but there's not a moment where you actually hear, oh, that's the petrol engine now, because it's so silent in general. Okay, first small bumps here I'm going over. Then we feel it's a huge car, also with the air suspension we got here in the top version. The steering wheel actually feels quite small for such a heavy car, I must say. I also got a head-up display in my view. So actually by this very small steering wheel, the whole car feels smaller. It doesn't really feel like a full-size SUV. If you compare it, for example, also to the XC90, right now I couldn't really say this car is much larger than the XC60, but it is, of course. But just from the feeling sitting in here and controlling the car, it doesn't feel like that. Also the hybrid is contributing to that, because when I'm at very low speeds, the petrol engine is turned off in this hybrid mode and I can really hear nothing. So the sound isolation is also very good here, at least what we feel now from the low speeds here. And for example, you can drive with the electric only inside the city. There's also a drive selector here with the drive mode in the middle, also with a very nice crystal structure. And I can just flip it around. Just first press it. And then when I've pressed it once, we see the central screen here. For now we're in hybrid mode. Again, so. But I can also put it to pure. And then we really just have the electric drive. So if you want to maybe in proximity to your neighborhood and you don't want to pollute any of the air or something, or just want to be very silent in the night, that's a good solution. Of course, if the battery is filled up. When we're just parking in and parking out here, actually the car also feels very light, and it's especially nice when we got the hybrid drive here, because we're so silent, and also when the petrol sets in, it really remains silent. I can also put it here to another one. Actually, off-road would be 4 centimeters going up for the suspension. Power and also eco means 2 centimeters lower for the air suspension. And now in the power mode, I also got the power combination of the electric engine and the petrol engine. Well, just for the most acceleration, and it's 5.9 seconds from 0 to 100 then. That's really amazing for such a heavy SUV. And if I just put the throttle down here now, there's a test. Wow, you really get a huge boost, and it's also very uncommon for an SUV. The car really gets light, you almost feel like flying, because the combination of accelerating that hard together with the air suspension, that's something I've never felt before. That's, well, of course we know something of that in the, for example, the Porsche Cayenne. But you know, the Porsche Cayenne has a stiffer suspension, so you feel more the connection to the road. Here, you got this rather comfortable suspension and don't have the direct connection to the road. I mean, if you then push the throttle, the car really feels light, because, you know, it's getting leaned to the back from the acceleration. Really interesting fact here as well. It still weighs 2 tons, depending on the engine, but they have saved some 100 kilograms of weight. About the turning circle. Now I really have to turn the car very fast now. And actually, well, of course it's a huge car, but because the steering is that light, it actually feels quite good to control it. It's also no problem to turn it fast. Now we get to some rock bottom. And we still have very comfortable SUV feeling here. So now we switch cars, that you see another color. This is Osmium Grey, and you will also see another interior. We so far had this, well, rather bright interior with the brown one here and the white car. Now we have the Osmium Grey car with a black interior, we'll see soon. And this one is also not the hybrid, but the 320 horsepower petrol engine. So here we just got the petrol engine, but still connected with the all-wheel drive. So if you just take a look at the outside, we basically also got the Inscription features here with the chrome line here as well, and we also got the same alloys. But here again, you see the door handles correspond to the exterior color. Very well done. So I want to hear your opinions also. Which color do you like best here, from white or this gray, or what else do you expect of the colors, and what are your impressions so far from the car? So, and then let's get into the interior here now. Because this is obviously different if you take a look inside there. There we have the black seats. They have the basic, well, the basic same structure, of course, just another color. Also the premium Inscription seats, and I think with the white contour stitches here, they also look very high class, especially in the combination with the checkered structures again. Well, for me personally, I like the brighter interior more, but what about you? Would you rather pick the black one or the other one? I think it's just a matter of taste. So let's go with the T6 now. So that's really just the full petrol engine, let's call it that way. And then of course we have the same starting button. But you see we have a different shifting level, so not this high-class crystal level, which I like pretty much because it was also very easy to control, very fast also. If you go front and back again here, it's, you know, it feels a little bit more heavy, everything, a little bit more manual. The other one is really high class. But still the engine, well, it's not too loud, I must say, just from the basic run here now. And before we drive forward now, I want to show you something very special. It's the rear view camera here. So if we go to the, you see it, you get it in its vertical screen now, and you see it's a very crystal clear resolution. And it's called going a little bit around already. You see it's almost now 360 view here just from the rear view already. Really amazed by this resolution. It almost looks like full HD or something like that. Also these turning lines are here, and then it's also a feature known with Mercedes or something like that. You got this 360 view here, so it's faking the view from above. And you really get a nice view. Especially here, this is kind of new because hardly any other car has this vertical screen. And this gives you an even better overview of how close you are to where, and also if you, for example, now parked at the front. And of course, this really helps you very much to control this huge car. You can just control it like in, you know, R3 Pro M times or something like that from this view from above, from this bird view. I think it's the best system of this kind I've seen so far. The Mercedes system was already very good, but this one even tops it, I must say. I'm really fascinated by it. Best system ever, I would say, just now from the first sight. And it really works flawless here as well. On the other hand, I must say, because the car is so good to handle, it's not a must-buy, you know. It's a good feature, of course, if you want to have it optionally, but it's very well to control also when just standing still and parking around this car, although it's almost 5 meters long. Okay, this rear beepers, so if you have the acoustic warning, that's really necessary. But that one is of course a great optional feature then. So, and now let's get to driving forward. And I want to also pick a route. So we first stop by the navigation, intuitive system, click on goal. So now here's something, press test ride. I want to access that one. Now it is. And now, for example, I want to have Barcelona Route 1. Let's see also how fast it goes. Okay. What would you say? Was it fast or not? I think it was quite okay, was it? So, I'm not seeing where I should go now, so I zoom in. Okay. Maybe he doesn't know the map here properly, but I'll turn right now. That would be absolutely the most clever choice. We're not in the hybrid anymore, so it's not that silent, especially when just accelerating here now. And I think our cameraman has to use the seat belt. I can take the camera for a second because he also shows me that in the central display. This means cameraman has no seat belt. Okay, and then let's continue with our route. And I think how good the hybrid really is, you can only tell in the difference when just using the petrol here now. And I must say, especially here at the low speeds, I just got the normal petrol engine here, it's not too loud. You see the RPM meter here on the right side, but still the hybrid version gives you so much, well, so much less noise in the interior that it feels even more evolved. You know, the petrol engine is not bad, but still I think if you can afford it to buy the hybrid, I would maybe go for it because, you know, it's more up to date. You can reduce your consumptions. If you got maybe a basement garage where you can power it up or something like that, that would be really a great solution. But of course, it's really expensive with a hybrid if you're in a market where you don't have any governmental benefits. However, for example, maybe in China or some of the federal states in the US or in like Norway or in the Netherlands, there you got tax benefits when buying a hybrid car. That might actually pay off. In general, the usual petrol engine will mainly be delivered to China and US with the 320 horsepower. And for Germany, more the diesel will play a role, like 85%. But we'll also get to the diesel later on. Let's now focus on the petrol engine. So far it feels pretty agile. We won't be able to tell you anything, you know, very complete about the consumption because we don't have very long test routes here. But I'll see if I can just find a hint to the consumption. So far it's more about the power and how it feels. Again, we got a very good sound isolation. I hardly hear anything from the outside. We got the very comfortable seats. I can really confirm that these seats are really superb comfortable. I could ride, you know, till the end of time now. And especially this high A-pillar gives you a very spacious feeling here in the interior. That is really a remarkable thing. So now I'm also looking forward to do some stop and go, for example. And to push the throttle a little bit more. Yeah, it's definitely different. Definitely. It goes quite fast actually for such a heavy car, but you feel a huge difference to the hybrid because the hybrid has this power instantaneously, and that is really a remarkable thing. Setting the cruise control, we know the Volvo cruise controls are kind of the best on the market. One here and another click here. Then we got the cruise control set here now, for example, to 105. That's a pretty easy system, but just again, I mentioned it in the first. These buttons here at the steering wheel, they are really a step backwards, I must say. Those we know from Volvo are actually better in quality, just from my impression. And the digital display, well, it's quite nice. I think I don't need really a completely digital display, but it's quite practical that I can also have the GPS view in my center view. That's quite okay, I think. And it's also good we now also got a head-up display, which you can not really see from your perspective now. But we also showed a head-up display in the A7 video lady, RS7 video lady, for example. So in general, it's a very relaxing ride here on the motorway. Again, it's all about these comfortable seats and also about this new suspension. They really completely develop a completely new suspension, and you also feel that. Well, actually the thing is, the best of a suspension is when you don't need to talk about it that much, because you know, you didn't really feel it's a suspension. You just felt like, okay, it's a car, it's driving, it's comfortable, and that's it. So that was the acceleration test here of the petrol engine. I think it was quite amazing. So the power is actually there. It goes very fast, even if it sounds a little bit screamy. So not my favorite petrol engine just from the sound, but the power is actually quite good. The hybrid is of course even more powerful. As I said, it's kind of a cool drive actually with the hybrid in comparison to that usual petrol engine. So I would go for the hybrid if you get the tax benefits, and then it pays off. If not, you maybe go for the usual petrol engine, or if you live in Germany, for example, or other European countries, you might also go for the diesel, which we will also review later on. So driving it a little bit more agile now, because just about the comfort, you cannot deny it's just a superb comfort, really. I think a car can hardly be more comfortable. But then again, they worked on the suspension that it's also, you know, a little bit more agile in the corners. And I can really say, especially now here in rather faster corners, you have more contact to the road, and it's a little bit stiffer, of course, than the predecessor version, and even in comparison to the XC60. So, well, it's a large compact SUV, but you rather put it in the compact SUV class than this one here in the full-size SUV class. It's even more agile than the XC60, and that's kind of a very good thing when you're in a bigger car. So the steering is also quite direct for such a huge SUV, and so I must really say I'm amazed of these driving impressions here just from the agility side. I think they really did a very good job here, and you don't feel like in a very large shaky SUV. You really feel like in a smaller car, and where you can also drive a little bit sporty. So, and to show you some more variety just from the exterior, here we have two more static cars, and here we can see, for example, how it looks when the front grille is in shiny black. It also looks pretty powerful, I must say, even more sporty of course, but at the same time this static car here, you see here, also has the matte black mudguards. So this is not this Elgin style where it's the same color as the rest of the exterior. We got it all in black here around the wheels. And we also got the side guard to help with the entry. Also adds more to this off-road style. Here you can see direct difference. Here we got it in black with this off-road style. And here we got the Legend style, of course, with the same exterior color. And furthermore, here we also see now, when it's dark now here, how the signature lights really work. This is Thor Hammer's light. And if you take a little bit step back again, you can see the difference here with the lights out, daytime running lights, and here with lights on again. And here, of course, also the difference with the bright silver front grille, and you've seen the black grille in contrast to that. And here we have the R-Design version, which will have its launch a little bit later on this year. It's also pretty amazing to see it already now, because you see there's also a special front grille, shiny black color, and has a little bit of different structure here, as well as a different front bumper, which just looks more aggressive. And also we don't have a chrome design here, but the shiny black design. The most important thing is, of course, well, first of all, the color, because this is a matte foil. It's actually possible to get it directly from Volvo. It's an optional price for that, but it is possible to pick this matte color in the R-Design line. However, I think it will last about 2 to 5 years, this foil. Then if we look from the side, these are the 22-inch alloys. They really look huge. It says here R22. And also in this B color design, really very beautiful, but of course 22-inch alloys, you can damage them quite easily. Then we have this bright chrome matte style caps here on the side mirrors. They are good contrast to this matte blue color, so really amazing car. I would buy it directly right now as it stands here. And then if we look on the interior, we also got some special features there. First of all, if we just look from the distance, we can see here we got the crystal aluminum gear shift lever here. You know, we've seen it before, crystal on the inside, and this small aluminum frame around it. You see it's enlightened. You see it now in the dark. Really looks amazing. And then you can also take a look at the seats with white contrast stitches, the R seats. They have more side support here, and also got the R-Design logo. But the biggest highlight is here, this one here on the inside of the doors. We usually get wood, or for example this aluminum jacket structure. This is actually real carbon fiber. That's especially here for the R-Design version. And another light design style is here. These entry caps here also from the R-Design. And now everyone, it's diesel time. This will be especially important for our German viewers, or in general the European viewers, because, you know, I've told you already, the US customers or in China will mostly go for the petrol engine. Then with taxation, customers which have tax advantages in their countries will probably go for the hybrid. Now there's the diesel here. This is actually the momentum trim level, so we have the middle trim level here now. We can compare it to the Inscription trim level, and we also got another color. This is the sand color here. So if you want to prefer that one, I also want to know your opinion about this color. We've shown you the white one, the gray one, and now this sand color here. Which one do you like best from these ones so far? I would always go for a blue car, of course. We haven't seen one so far, but maybe we'll do it in a test car later this year with the blue one, maybe. Let's see. So just from design, from the momentum trim level here now, I must say, well, it's just such a beautiful car, and it doesn't really matter so much if you have the Inscription level for the exterior. Of course, you have some chrome layer here and there additional. For example, here at the side profile we see, we don't have this Inscription chrome layer at the lower part, but you know, I don't care so much. Here we also got the 20-inch alloys, which are in this B color design with dark highlights on the inside. That was really massive alloy, even though if we here now in the Momentum trim level. But in general, I must say, what do you think? I would also go for it in a Momentum trim level. There will also be this kinetic entry trim level, but I think even the entry level will be very beautiful. So I think you can't make this car ugly at any time if you pick a low trim level. But what is very interesting is when we took a look at the interior now, because this one is actually quite different, but maybe even more beautiful. So, Luminous scent on the outside and also sand color on the inside. And just color wise, this is my absolute favorite. We do not have some Inscription trim level features here now, but I think just from design, I don't really care if it's Inscription or Momentum here. I really love the colors that I used right here. You see everything is covered here in the bright leather style. Well, you know, I'm also a fan of Alcantara, so I would also prefer having Alcantara even here. But just from the color, I think it's very, very beautiful. And well, in combination with the white car, the brown looked better, of course, because you have the contrast here. But in this case, or if you also maybe go for a blue car, I think I would always go for that one, because that really also fits to this car and fits to Volvo to have a very bright interior. Also, again, in comparison, well, together, let's say together with the panoramic roof. By the way, I can also open the panoramic roof for you once. So it's not only a panoramic roof that goes from up till the rear. You can also open it with a button up here. By the way, all of the buttons, they are not matte, they are kind of shiny and black, so also high class used here. And then you can first open it to the, let's say, first level. It's even more light in, and then you can even push it back a little further. 90% of the all-new Volvo XC90 have been created all new, but there's one feature that has been carried over from the old one or from other Volvos, and that is the integrated child seat. We didn't have it in the Inscription trim level. I think it's just optional, but still it's available, let's say it. And if you can put the latch up here and push it up, and then you have an integrated child seat. So very practical feature for families, that you don't need an additional child seat here for the middle seat. And of course, there's a complete seat belt here as well. And in the front, great wooden structure. It is real wood, real Swedish wood, and it's also not, you know, does not this shiny surface where you also see the fingerprints. It's really a matte wood surface, so it really feels natural. And also the sliding processes here all feel premium-alike. You know, maybe from our Range Rover video, that there was a big fail in that sliding process. You can check it out as well here, Autogefühl Range Rover video. And then also these bright colors are used right here. That is just so amazing. What is very good is that the dashboard is still black, because if the dashboard would be also in that bright color, you would have gotten reflections from the window, and that's not that good. And my absolute favorite is here the steering wheel design, because you have this contrast inside the steering wheel. Outside was black and inside bright again. And I must say, the rather cheap airbag cover also looks better in that bright color. So if you ask me, I would definitely go for this exact interior, not because it's Inscription or Momentum or whatever, because it's this bright together with the wood. That's my absolute favorite. What about you? And then let me show you a feature of the trunk I didn't show you before. It's that opening with the foot. We haven't seen it in Volvos before, but in other brands. So if you have the key in your pocket, you can wave with your foot on the left side. Okay, that was blocked now because I was standing behind it. Let's see if it closes again. Okay. A little bit of fail. I can also close and open it with a key. So closing again. Let's try one more time. But you know, that's how it is, everyday life. You know, I'm coming with all my shopping bags. There we go. And then we can take a look at the trunk again here. So it doesn't differ from the upper trim. You can just pull it up so it moves back. Then you see we got that huge trunk again. We don't have, actually I can show you, we don't have such a beautiful car for this one here. But still, you know, I don't think you really get the difference. So I can just recommend the Momentum trim level, really. The basic trim level, hardly anyone picks it nowadays because you want to have certain features in always. I think the Momentum trimmer will be a very good choice for this car. Let's close again with the foot. Hello. Sensor. I think I'll maybe just go with the key or press the button here. Ta-da! First of all, well, it's quite silent. You hear it from the outside, of course, it's a diesel. From the inside, you don't hear it that much. That's a diesel, actually. Okay, let me slow the bump here now. Again, the basic feeling of the car is, of course, the same. And this one is very relevant now for our German viewers because they will go for the diesel, definitely. Even cheaper than the petrol engine. So when you're just going at slow speeds here in the round corners, you don't feel such a difference actually, because the engine remains silent, and at low speeds it doesn't make such a difference, I must say. Maybe at low speeds I even think that the diesel maybe even sounds a little bit better than the petrol engine, I'm not sure. So, and also good acceleration if we're just at low speeds, that's perfectly fine. Now if we accelerate from O, push it a little bit down. Yeah, you do have actually a lot of power, you know, these turbo diesels, they produce a lot of torque, so that's really fine. You won't lack any power here. However, if you push it down, you realize, well, that's kind of 1 second the diesel still needs until this turbo sets in. Of course, the petrol engine has also a turbo, but you know, that's kind of the basic difference. The petrol engine is a little bit more explosive. I think you can really have a stepping up here. So the diesel, petrol, and then the hybrid, just, you know, with an increasing power level. So the hybrid just really almost feels like a sports car when you push down the throttle. And the diesel is more for this relaxed style. But still, when you're on the motorway, you will have enough power also to accelerate. It's not that kind of explosive power, but still you'll be just fine. The consumption for the petrol engine will be around, I think, 11 or maybe even 12 liters on 100 kilometers, and that's quite a lot. We'll like to see on how the diesel behaves when we have a little bit longer off the road. This will also be very interesting, but in general, I can really recommend the diesel, especially, for example, in Germany, it's well, less expensive. But of course, our Chinese or American friends, they will rather go for the petrol engine, as I said before. Now we can also test some off-road driving. If we pick our drive mode selector here in the front again, we got the optional air suspension in that car as well. I can just recommend it because it adds so much to the comfort. And then we can go to off-road. So then we get a little bit higher, 4 centimeters higher. The comfort is not increased when you put the suspension up, but it's just that you have more ground clearance and it's safer to go off-road. Got a little bit of sand here at the beach now. And of course, the all-new Volvo XC90 is also fully off-road capable. And so the all-wheel drive also does not have any problems with the sand. Even if we got some deep sand ruts here now, you're feeling it. The all-wheel drive is working. Don't put the throttle too much down. If we want to accelerate out very fast, even if you shouldn't do that off-road, just for testing here now, it also works pretty fine. So if you're maybe on a ranch or something like that, or maybe are in the home country of Sweden or something, then you'll also be fine with the off-road features of the all-new XC90. It's really very comfortable still off-road, and of course also when you go on these ruts, and the air suspension is just superb for this. So if we go off the road here on purpose now for fun or for testing, that's fine. But usually you do not want to get off the road with that car if you're just on the normal street. And that brings us to the run-off road protection and in general to the safety features of the all-new Volvo XC90. Volvo says we are the brand that offers the best safety features, and well, partially that's also really true. It's something like a core feature of the brand. So far, all the Volvo models had this city emergency braking assistant from serial production that was working for cars that was driving in front of you. Then there was optional that the car also realizes, okay, is there any people running around there or maybe cyclists? But that was optional. Now in the all-new Volvo XC90, this is all included. So you got this emergency braking assistant, and which is also recognizing, you know, any people running on the street or also the cyclists. And this one is reducing these small accidents inside the city, which can, you know, for the guy inside the car, not so, not so relevant for injuries, but of course for costs, but even more relevant for people running around or, for example, for the cyclists. And these kind of accidents are reduced by 30% by this system. And it comes from serial production, you know, with, I think it's the most important factor, because there can be so many security systems, but they don't help when they're not from serial production, but because not everyone is taking them. So this one is step one here now, and then there are of course also additional features. But before we talk about that, let me show you that here in the front grille, we don't see the sensor anymore. We just have the front camera from the 360 degrees camera system, but the sensor, well, would be like big black shiny element here. We, for example, see in the XC60, moved up here now to the window, because they could then pick a more expensive system here, because here it's well protected, because if you have the system and do have an accident in the front, the run-on accident, then this system would get damaged here if it sits in the front, the sensor. Here it's protected, and so you can use an even more expensive system for that. And that one is also for the sensor for the emergency braking assistant. What else is there? From serial production there comes this run-off road protection, and I can show you some footage from there, some animation, which is very exciting, because this run-off road protection realizes when the car is going off the road, and then, for example, tightens the seat belt, also tightens the seat itself, that you don't get, for example, so much whiplash, and in general the passenger is kept tight inside the seat, so you don't move around that much, and that protects you when the car is running off the road. So really interesting feature here from Volvo, and that is also from serial production. And then again, there are even more optional safety features. For example, the blind spot sensor, we know, the great automatic cruise control, and also a lane departure warner that you don't run off the road in the first place. There are also very interesting crash test footage I want to show you again. Some of them I've already shown you in earlier reviews. There are some new footage available here now as well. So I want to show you that as well, because it's also very impressive how they test the car, and especially also this run-off road protection. So the Volvo strategy is we implement even more safety systems optionally, and those that are a little bit older come inclusive from serial production then. And so step by step, even more security systems are inside the serial production. And that will ultimately lead to the goal of Volvo. They say by 2020 we want to have no one killed or seriously injured in a Volvo car. I think this year with the all-new XC90 and including even more assistance system in the serial production, I think it's the first step towards that. So, and finally let me conclude about the all-new Volvo XC90. There was and still is so much to say about this car. Really crucial car for the brand itself, and this will lead the brand into the future. I must say, to be honest, I lost the typical Volvo feeling so far. I wouldn't say this is a classical Volvo, but that's not a bad sign, because this one defines a new Volvo feeling. We still got the basic features a Volvo offers, for example the stressing of the safety features and the very superb comfortable seats and the great suspension, which has been rebuilt here from all new on. but we don't have this classical Volvo feeling. This one is really a new Volvo feeling. It's a little bit more directer Volvo feeling. The steering is more direct. The car, even though it's that big, drives more sporty than any other Volvo in my opinion. So they really did a great job there. Also, the whole new interior has been refined and you get an even more exclusive atmosphere. You know, there were just some parts, for example, the buttons at the steering wheel we didn't like, but these ones are rather minor failures. Overall, it's really high class and it's more exclusive and more emotional than we, for example, see at the moment from Audi, BMW or Mercedes. So this one will attract a lot of new customers also from the other premium brands. Just from the exterior, I must say, from design, this is really my favorite SUV of all time, in my opinion. And just from driving, I said it earlier in the driving experience, it really feels like a smaller car, so you don't really feel that it's such a huge car. And if you got the camera systems, you'll also be fine with parking the car. However, it is still a huge car and it will not fit in any parking lot, of course. But overall, if you want an SUV of that size, at the moment I can just conclude it's maybe the best pick so far here at all on the market. It's not the most sporty one, of course, then you have to pick a Porsche Cayenne, but just from the comfortable ride and all the features and just all the feeling together, you know, how you feel at home in this car, this is really superb. So, thank you again for watching Autogefühl. I want to hear your opinions on that car, on the exterior, interior, and also what you took from the driving impressions. Maybe just a small hint at the end which engine you should pick when you pick the car. You know there will be later on a smaller petrol engine and also a smaller diesel engine. The smaller diesel engine also will come only with front-wheel drive to save some more costs, to have a low entry price. Even though just with the front-wheel drive, you'll be just fine. You just need the off-road all-wheel drive when you go off-road really quite a lot. Otherwise, you don't really need it. It just depends on your region where you're actually in. I would go for the diesel just to have a low entry price actually. And if I would be in a market where you get these tax benefits, I would go for the hybrid because no matter of the cost, the hybrid is my favorite. So silent. No sound when you're going at slow speeds, and it really helps the petrol engine and you get the great boost. And of course you can do something for your environment if you just plug it in and then maybe go some ways all electric then if you have the possibility of charging the car at your maybe of your home garage or something or in front of your house. That would be very practical. So my pick would be like, I think, this exact interior I'm showing you. It can be momentum equipment, I don't care actually that much. The R-Design is of course very spectacular, but you know, I think it doesn't fit so much to the car. This wooden style, bright interior, I think it really fits more to that car. And then I would also go for the hybrid and try to charge it as often as I can do. If I more look towards the money and don't have this tax benefits in my market, I would probably go for the diesel, pick the car exactly as it stands here right now. I think I will maybe have to pay something about 60 to 70,000 euros for that now. But I would just go for the blue exterior color, even though sand with sand is quite impressive here now as well. So, and that's now with the conclusion. You see, there was so much to say about this car because so much is new and it's maybe I think the most important review of the year because there are of course other generations from other cars, but this one is really a big step forward here for Volvo towards a new Volvo feeling. Thank you very much for watching again. Looking forward to your comments now. This is Thomas for Autogefühl. Bye.